right, it's 3 o'clock, so we're going to get started. First, Jerry, thank you for sharing some information on fail-safe leadership today. So with that, I'm going to let you take it away, sir.
Okay. Well, since I see that the people are here are people that I haven't met yet. I don't think, have I?
I don't think so.
So let me introduce myself. I am Jerry Hogan. Actually, 20 years ago this month, I got a call from a company which Wendy is very familiar with, but we're not supposed to say their names or initials anymore, so I won't. It took me a few months to get started in the business, but I am coming up on 20 years. And it's been a really nice way to make a living. Just beats the heck out of working, actually. One of the things that I found out in this network a long time ago is that you have to be very careful with what you say, because people pick up on things that you don't really know you're going to be quoted on. And when the first edition of Fail-Safe Leadership came out, I, like many others, bought a bunch of copies, and I was receiving, I don't know, some award or something. I don't remember what it was, but I was given 5 copies of Fail-Safe Leadership and asked to say something to the group. It was at what is now called the Power Summit. And something such as a throwaway line, if you will, was that for every Fail-Safe Leadership book that I had handed out, I made approximately $3,000 in profit. And it was just a throwaway line. I didn't really think much about it until I started getting phone calls and emails and people coming up to me and asking me, well, gee, how do you get $3,000 just to hand out a book? And so I've given this talk several times before. This is the first time in this format. And since I haven't met you, you haven't heard the talk yet. So I'm kind of excited about a new audience. The topic is how to use fail-safe leadership creatively in marketing, sales, and facilitation. So let's start with some definitions first. When I use the term process, I define that as a documented series of activities leading to a predictable outcome. When I use the term marketing, it is that process which leads to the introduction by prospective clients to your company and their products or services. When I use the term sales, I'm talking about that activity or that process which results in the introduction of your company and your products and services to a particular suspect for the purpose of converting them to prospects and eventually customers or clients. When I use facilitation, I'm talking about the process of learning, which is based upon drawing out of knowledge and experience from the participants in order to further the knowledge and education of both themselves and anyone else in the learning environment. So most of the work that I do is facilitation. I expect people to know the information before I get in front of the group and talk about it. But this is new, so we're going to do a little bit of teaching, which is the process of taking information out of the teacher's brain and sticking it into your brain. I think of fail-safe leadership as a tool. And let me make a disclaimer here. I am not here to discuss the information contained in the book. I am not here to give a treatise or a critique of the writing or anything that is in the book itself. I trust you've all read the book, but for the purposes of what we're talking about, that's kind of irrelevant. You don't need to read the book to do what I'm about to tell you. So let's start with marketing. And I'm only going to tell you what it is that I have done. I'm not going to give any theories, or I'm not going to give anybody else's opinions or ideas. I'm just going to tell you what I did, what worked for me, what didn't work for me, and what I gained as the result of that process. So, marketing. If marketing is about bringing an awareness of your customer, of your company or your products or services to you, then I guess fail-safe leadership can be used for that purpose. And I attempted to use it for that purpose many, many, many times, and I bought many, many, many books. And I got to tell you, my success was very underwhelming. I did not receive a single client by handing out a fail-safe leadership book in a marketing context. Not one, zero. I think Tammy was real happy with me because I bought a lot of books, but it just cost me a lot of time, money, and a lot of frustration. So I'm not here to recommend or suggest how you do your business. I will tell you, though, that just handing out books was something that did not work for me in any way, shape, or form. And I handed them out for holiday presents. I handed them out to people that I thought could use them. I handed them out to friends. I handed them out to former clients, and literally got zero response. And I did this for years, which just shows how good of a learner I am. Probably in the neighborhood of 100 books. So I spent a lot of money and a lot of time in a marketing mode using fail-safe leadership and got absolutely nothing from it. But here's what worked for me. And this is going to take maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and it's going to be the most important 5 or 10 minutes of anything we do. And after I tell you what this 5 or 10 minutes will entail, feel free to ask questions or participate in the discussion, because I do trust that this is going to be interactive. I kind of stumbled on this, like I stumble on a lot of things in my life, when one day at a networking event, I was talking to an individual who owned a small business who I had never met before. And he asked me, what do you do? And I gave him my typical elevator speech, which, by the way, I don't remember, primarily because I haven't really solicited a customer in the last 2 years, and I don't intend to solicit another one for at least 20 more years, because I'm old enough now that I'm seriously considering retiring. It's just that I got to get rid of the customers I've got before I can do that. But anyway, back to the story. Giving my elevator speech, he then said, that's kind of interesting. And can you tell me more? And I said, well, this isn't really the format to go into that, but I'll tell you what, I got this book that a couple of friends of mine had written, and if you'll promise to read it, I'll let you have it. And he said, okay, I can do that. When do you want to get together and talk about it? And I thought, wow, he just asked me for an appointment. And so we made the appointment. We got together, made the sales call, and it actually did result in a fairly small piece of business. But the seed was planted in my brain as to how I could use this book. So here's what I've done, and here's what worked for me. When I meet somebody who I consider to be a potential prospect, I'll have a short conversation with them, and I will say to this individual, I've always heard that leaders are readers. How much do you read? Now, there's a couple of answers that you can get from that. One is, I don't read at all. The other is, I read as much as I can, but I don't have much time. The third answer is I'm a voracious reader. I read all the time. I read everything that comes to me. And I have found that any of those answers are exactly the answer I'm looking for. Because if the person is a voracious reader, the response is, well, I know you've got a lot of books that you're probably reading now. If you're anything like me, you got a stack about this high, and you never know which one you're going to get to or when you're going to be able to get to it. But I got a book that'll take you between about 90 minutes to 2 hours to read. And I promise you that it will open your eyes to a new way of developing the leaders in your organization. And if I promise you that you can get this read in no more than 2 hours, will you promise to meet with me and share your insights of this book? And the answer is almost always yes when it's a voracious reader. At that time, I set the appointment and give that person the book. Second response. Well, I don't really have a lot of time to read. I, read magazines, or I do professional reading. Well, great. I have a book that's written by some friends of mine that address the very issues that we've been talking about, and is written in such a concise manner that you can probably read the whole thing in 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours, depending on how deeply you get into the book. But I promise you that if you spend that time reading this book, you're going to find it to be well worth your while. Now, since this is a book that's going to be very valuable to me, very valuable to you, I'm going to give it to you with the caveat that you and I are going to get together and share the insights in the book. It'll take about 90 minutes to read it. You think you can get it done in a couple of weeks? And we set the appointment, and the person gets the book. Third response. I never read. I don't have time to read. I don't like to read. I'm not a reader at all. Well, great. I have a book that's written for people who don't have the time to read and who don't want to read, who don't like to read, and who don't get anything out of reading. It's written by some friends of mine who are in the business I'm in. It only takes about 90 minutes to 2 hours to read the book. And I promise you that you will get something out of it. In fact, I am so sure you will get something out of it that if I'm going to give you this book, we'll set an appointment, because I want to hear your insights. I'm really particularly interested in your insights because you're the kind of person who doesn't read. And this is a book written for people who don't read. So your insights would be very valuable to me. They would be just as valuable to me as this book is going to be for you. So if it takes you about 90 minutes to maybe 2 hours to read the book, do you think we can get together in a couple of weeks and share your insights on the book? And if the answer is yes, I give them the book. Now, who can tell me the common denominator in all three of these approaches? Believe me, I'll call on you. But Leona's not muted, so I'm going to point to her and ask you, Leona.
The common denominator is they just need to be able to read. They don't have to like it. You're going to be able to sell it to all three of them, no matter what, or be able to give it to them with a positive reception.
I would call that the common numerator, actually.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a good insight. Any other guesses?
I'll take a guess. I would say set the appointment.
Thank you, Mike. That's it. Set the appointment. No appointment, no book. When I ask for the appointment and attempt to set the date, I can get a variety of responses. One is, well, I'll take the book, give me a call, we can set something up. I'll take the book, if I like it, maybe we'll get together. I'll take the book, yeah, let's get together on such and such a date at such and such a time at such and such a place. Or, I don't know, maybe not. if I don't get an appointment, which is date, time, and place, no book. Extremely important. If I don't get the appointment, it's just the same as my marketing approach, which was to send out a bunch of books and hope I got a response. So let's say that's occurred. I have given them the book. I have set the date, or the appointment, and now I show up at the person's place of business or wherever we decided to meet for the appointment. A number of things can happen when you show up for an appointment. And if you've been in this business more than a week, one of these things has already happened to you. Number one, they're not there. Or if they're there, they don't want to see you anyway. Or they have canceled the appointment. If that occurs, if for whatever reason they do not keep the appointment, I show up and take the book back. Because I've given them something of value. They've promised something of value to me, which is their insights in the book. And if they're not going to deliver, why should I? And if they don't have the book there, I leave a message for them that I will be at their place of business at such and such a time for the purpose of picking up the book. Secondly, I show up at the meeting. The meeting goes as planned. One of two things can happen, right? I ask them, so what did you get out of the book? Two responses. I read it or I didn't. Both of those responses are positive responses. If they have read the book, it's great. I would love to hear your insights. So if you're familiar with the buying selling process, you know that what we have done is we have gone through the introductory stage, and we're now into the gaining favorable attention stage. As they share insights, then I can start asking questions about how these insights might apply to their business. What in the book did you read that you found to be key concepts? I'm going to jump to facilitation for just a second because the term key concepts is a word that I use every single time I facilitate a process. When I ask people, what were the key concepts in the chapters that they've read? I'm not asking them if they've read the book. I'm asking them, what in the book did they read that they found applicable to their business or state in life at that moment? And when I ask a prospective client what the key concepts were in the book that they read, Fail-Safe Leadership, I'm asking them, what did they learn that applies to their business? So now I'm in what? Discovering wants and needs, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I use the book to facilitate the buying, selling process when they have read the book. But I said earlier that, that both responses, whether they've read the book or not, are positive responses. And I got to tell you the truth, it's probably 50-50. Probably half the time they read it, half the time they don't. When I get the response that, geez, I didn't have time to read it, or, you know, I got started, but I didn't get through it, or this came up or that came up, that is a perfect opening for me to ask the question, geez, it sounds like you really got a lot going on. Tell me what's happening that you couldn't spend 90 to 120 minutes to read this book that you promised to read me. So what's going on? There must be some things that are happening in your business. Tell me about it. So now I'm again into discovering wants and needs. So either response is a good response. And that's the 10 minutes I promised you. Because the power of this book for me has been to get the appointment and to get the discovering wants and needs stage in the buying and selling process. It's been the most powerful way I have gotten appointments in my 20 years in this business, I would say. It's been the second most effective way of booking business, if you will. The first being executive forums, but that's a different subject. I've already discussed one way of using the book as facilitation. I actually use fail-safe leadership, or I have, to facilitate groups of people. And I do this two ways. First of all, when a client wants a sample, if you will, I'll let them buy the book, and I'll let them pay me a certain amount of money for a 1 to 2 hour facilitation on the book. And I'll ask exactly the same question. I will hand out the book 2 weeks earlier. I'll come in, I'll sit down with however many people I've handed the book out, and I'll ask the group, what are the key concepts you saw in the book? Write them down. Those become our discussion points for the buying selling process from then on. So when I use it as a facilitation tool in that regard, it's really a marketing or a sales use of the book. But again, because it's a facilitated process, they have to have read the book beforehand. I'm not there to teach the contents of the book. I'm there to draw from them their knowledge and information on the subject and their experience, and put it in an applicable format that they can use in the facilitated process. The other way I use it in facilitation is if I have sold a process and we're not going to start for 2 to more weeks, then each participant will get a copy of Failsafe, which they are expected to read prior to coming to the first meeting, and I will tie that into my kickoff. That way I don't necessarily have to sell the process that I'm selling, or I don't have to sell it to the participants. They already know what's going on. They already know how we're going to discuss it. They already know that the way we are going to address the issues. Those are the two ways that I use the facilitation. I have used it one time with a group, which was a not-for-profit that I had both a heart for and knew that the people who were going to be in the group would be good representatives of the community and could introduce me to some prospective clients as the result of facilitating their work with the Failsafe. And that actually got me a couple of clients. In fact, it was pretty profitable. So I suppose I could say the other way that I facilitated is with somebody who didn't have the money to pay for a full process. Questions?
When you do the process with somebody who you said doesn't have the money to purchase a full process, what does that look like? Is that the 1 or 2 hour presentation or facilitation that you do on the book? That's what
right. It's exactly the same thing I do at the kickoff.
Sure.
Yeah. And I would only do it for a not-for-profit. I would not do that for a company, because they're going to get pretty much what they pay for.
Yeah.
And I would personally only do it if I knew that there was an opportunity to either really help them or to be referred to somebody who would be a paying client.
What kind of reactions do you get from your clients on the book?
In what context?
Do you have do you have clients mostly excited about the contents of the book, or some of them saying, now that doesn't work with our organization? Do you get a lot of pushback, or do you get more acceptance of the
Are you talking about when I'm meeting them in the appointment that I've made?
Yes.
Sales process.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Excuse my flippancy on this, on my response, but I don't care what the reaction is.
Okay.
I'm not there really to discuss the book. I'm really there to do a fact-finding process. Their reaction to the book, whether they've read it or not, is always in the context of what's going on in their life and their business. And so, although I present it as looking for their insights, and I've gotten some pretty darn good insights, actually. In no way am I not being truthful, because that's exactly what I want. I want their insights. But I have found that their insights are always given in the context of what's going on in their business. And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't actually have to read the book yourself, huh?
You know, I used to teach fast start learning with a number of other affiliates, and Alan Kovitz once got up in front of a group of brand new affiliates and said, "You don't need to read the book to facilitate a process." And from that moment on, he became my hero. And the truth is, no, you don't have to read the book. I would suggest you do. In no way am I here to tell you that you shouldn't read the book, okay? It's a good book. And if the discussion gets to the point where people really want to talk about it, then you might want to have something to say. Yeah.
It's really a probing tool that you're using.
Yeah. That's all it is. It's a tool. That's how I use it.
Yeah.
The most important thing, I'm going to reiterate this probably more than once, again, which I guess is redundant. No appointment, no book. I can't tell you how many books I've given away because people said they'd read it, didn't read it, and didn't get the book back. Why waste my time and money?
Yeah. I guess that's the quick way to get the answer of who's going to be interested and who's not.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
It's a numbers game.
The price of a book and a visit, it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of an aside, but I was at a gas station 20 years ago. This guy walks up and says, "Man, that's a really nice pickup truck. I used to have one just like that, but I lost mine." Says, "How do you like it?" "It's great." Yak, 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 yak. Says, "Hey, you seem like a businessman. I got a really, really cool business opportunity. It's on this little cassette tape, and I'll loan you this, but I have to have it back. And so if you'll meet me in 3 days, we can talk about it." And so I didn't. He was such a nice guy. I took the dang thing. Took me 3 more weeks of meetings to figure out it was Amway. And, but it worked.
Mm-hmm.
It worked.
I think maybe that's where I got it. I actually built 2 direct distributorships in Amway.
So you know the technique.
And when I got divorced, my wife got the first business, and so I didn't have to pay alimony. So that was good.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it works. And the reason it works is because you're trading value. You're giving them a valuable book, and you're expecting value in return. It's not a gift.
What type of response do you get? Let's say somebody doesn't read the book and cancels the appointment. What type of response do you get when you say, "Okay, great, I'll be by to pick the book up at, 5 o'clock on Thursday"?
I would say about 75% of the time, I go get the book. The other 25% of the time, we actually make the appointment. So it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just curious.
Yeah. Yeah, I stick by my word on that. I don't give any quarter.
No, I get why you would do that. It was just, I was wondering, How do they respond? Are they almost like, what?
Yeah, I think they are. But most of the time it's sitting out in the lobby and they won't come out and see me. And if they don't want to come out and see me after they've committed to it, I don't want them anyway. I got plenty of fish in the fry.
Yep. Well, and that just leads into, if they would become a client, how committed would they be to the process?
Yeah. That's another thing I quit caring about a long time ago, whether they were committed. My job's to facilitate the process. Their job is to be committed.
Right.
You got me for 29 more minutes, folks.
I can throw out something really, really interesting.
I'd love to hear it.
A little off topic, but so the back of the book has a little testimonial from Dr. Meisner from BNI.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wrote Dr. Meisner last week and said, hey, this book that you endorsed many years ago just came out with a brand new 2019 edition. Can I send you a copy? And he emailed me back and said, I'm waiting for it. So I'm sending Dr. Meisner a copy. And along with a little note, how can we use this in BNI?
Tell him he has to meet with you to get the copy, though.
I'll ask him if he didn't read it. I'm coming to go and get it back.
Where does Ivan live? He's in Southern California, right?
I think he's in California, yeah.
Yeah.
So Mike, you could maybe get it for me?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. I'd be glad to.
So I know you guys are processors, but what questions do you have for Jerry that you have him on the phone?
Well, I think this is phenomenal. I mean, this is great insight for me, especially being sort of a newbie still. I don't know. When do I quit being a newbie?
You quit being a newbie a long time ago.
No, that's not true.
Seriously, Mike, how long you been in?
2.5 years.
Let me tell a quick story, okay? I was in the network for several years, and Jim Godshaw totally ignored me. I mean, just like I didn't even exist in his world. And then after like 5 years, he started talking to me. And since then, he and I have become pretty good friends, actually. But I asked him, I said, Jim, 5 years, you ignore me. And then all of a sudden, you're my best friend. What's going on? And he said, I get to know people that come into the network, and I just love them. And if they leave the network, it breaks my heart. But if they're in for 5 years or more, then I'm pretty sure they're going to stay, and I'll reach out to them and become their friend because I don't want my heart to be broken.
That's nice.
So 5 years. And I know exactly what he means too.
So here's an off-the-wall question for you, Jerry. So I don't know, maybe 15 years ago at Lockheed Martin, we were running all of the new supervisors through a thing called a Hogan assessment. And it was designed to see how volatile they were and how well they could handle stress. Was that your assessment?
No. That's John Hogan. I know him. Yeah.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
It didn't last long.
It's roughly based on a disc, but it doesn't do the kind of analysis. It's only looking for one specific attribute within the disc. And consequently, I don't think it's as accurate as he could have made it. But he sold a lot of them.
So the interesting thought that's kind of running through my head just right now is you could probably do the same approach that you're talking about with an advanced insights. And I still suffer from the running my mouth too much with advanced insights. But if you ask people, you could give them a little snippet, a little teaching, and then you could ask them exactly what you did. So what are the key concepts that you're getting out of this?
Yes, you absolutely can.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
You do have to explain what it means. You've got to actually give them a debrief and an analysis.
Hi,
Walter.
how you doing? Yeah, I was thumbing through the book again as you were speaking, and one of the things strategically, what I've been thinking about is reaching out to some past clients. And I was thinking about your approach and really reaching out to some of my past clients and taking this approach of the book and having them to go through it and go through the whole marketing spiel that you have. And I'm thinking that it could lead to some good conversations around, just exactly where are you today? And it's coming up on a new year. Are you really ready to do something differently?
Great. Let me know how it works, huh?
Yeah.
I found that it was a real good introduction to what I was doing with people who knew me from a different context, like either past clients or past employers, because they only knew me, in that one narrow sense of what I was doing for them at the time. I just went to my 50-year high school reunion, and everybody knew me as the editor of the high school newspaper. Yeah. It's been 50 years since I edited a newspaper.
Yeah. I'm thinking as well, you had me thinking, going to one of my fraternity meetings, and it's a lot of guys in my alumni chapter, my fraternity, they're leaders and successful and leaders in organizations and et cetera. It might be a good way of just, like I say, they know me from the fraternity, brother, but they don't know what I do professionally. It's just everybody is a leader. We teach leadership, but how you doing?
But let me reiterate: no appointment, no book.
Right.
Unless you want to give them a gift.
Right.
Because without the appointment, you really are just giving them a gift.
Right. Got you.
And I think in the context of fraternity or past employment, I think the whole issue of, I've known you as a leader in this context, and I would really like to hear your insights, not only from the way I know you, but from what you're doing now as it pertains to what's in the book. I think that would be a real powerful entry.
Okay.
So Jerry, I met with a guy this morning that I just met at some networking event. Very interesting guy, personally as well as professionally. And he's a salesman for a moving company. They're an agent for National Van Lines. And, we're talking, we're having a nice conversation. And, it's a shared conversation. He wants to know about me. I want to know about him. And then he tells me that his territory is San Gabriel Valley, which is roughly 80 miles from here. And so he drives in there and he goes to the real estate association, all that kind of stuff. Then he drives back here. And his company headquarters out here. And so, I didn't push it too hard because all of his contacts, all of his referral sources are going to be 80 miles away. And I have one client that's 80 miles away and they're painful. And so do you ever just prejudge and say, I'm not going to do this? Or do you just have an open, positive, optimistic view with everybody and just push through it?
Mike, I can answer that two ways. I do have an open, positive outlook on people. But you're just dealing with a sales guy here, right?
Right.
Number one, he's not going to be the decision maker. He may be an influencer. So you have to understand that you're going to have to make two sales here.
Right.
And it's been my experience, and maybe this is unique to the world, but when the subordinate goes to the superior and says, I've talked to this guy and he could teach us some leadership, you need to talk to him too, that kind of ruffles the feathers of the boss. Secondly, he's not going to be much of a referral source because he's going to be dealing with a lower level person who is really, and excuse the term lower level person, but he's going to be dealing with people who are not necessarily running companies. His contacts are going to be at his level, which is why I brought up the whole CEO roundtable thing before. Can I spend a second on this, Wendy?
It's your learning lab. I'm just here. You certainly.
But it's not part of the
But
thing.
that's okay, because I think
Okay.
it's beneficial.
The one thing I have done, even more so than fail-safe leadership, that has brought me more business than anything, is to be a speaker at, a facilitator for, and a member of Renaissance Executive Forums, which is a group of CEOs who meet for the sole purpose of helping each other grow their business profitably and enjoyably. And those are the exact people that I want in my business. And there are a number of different CEO roundtable groups. Renaissance is one of them. Vistage is another. EO and YPO are both in that category. And there's a number of other ones too. But more so than BNI, more so than Rotary or Optimist or any of the charitable work that I do that put me in front of movers and shakers, CEO roundtable groups are the thing that have been the most beneficial to me. And it's a great place to peddle fail-safe leadership books. Because you're getting in front of the exact people you're looking to be in front of. And as a CEO yourself, you're probably qualified to join one of those groups, which is a really good way to present yourself as a peer with something that is beneficial to the other members. Most of them have speakers. Typically the format is they'll start for an hour, hour and a half with a thought leader or a speaker who speaks on a certain topic. And then that thought leader will leave the meeting, and then they'll have the CEOs will get together and talk about issues that they're having in their company and try to help each other with ideas on how to resolve them and how to grow their business. But being that thought leader is a really good way to get your message across. And you can get up and give an hour speech on fail-safe leadership and let people know that they can have the book. All they got to do is ask you for it and set an appointment to meet and share their insights. I probably should know this, Wendy, but is there a fail-safe leadership speech?
Conveniently enough, there is.
I thought there was, yeah.
Yeah, there's the fail-safe workshop. Yep.
Yep, the fail-safe. See, that would be a perfect entree into a CEO roundtable group.
Yeah, currently we are a part of a business owners dialogue group that does just that, meets once a month. It's a group, it's an offshoot from the Chamber of Commerce, one of the largest Chamber of Commerce in the area.
Almost every major chambers have those.
Yeah, and they are great. I know my husband has done the fail-safe leadership presentation a couple of times, but always giving the book away as a basically read this and after the fact, actually, the way the presentation for fail-safe leadership lends itself is to, basically going through the process. You don't necessarily have to read the book, and so we've used it as a follow-up. And now here's the book, read it. But I like the idea of saying, I have this book for you. If you would like a copy of it, come and see me. Set up an appointment so we can talk about it later. That's much more powerful.
Yeah, because you're sharing value.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not just giving something away.
Right, right. Yeah.
Anything else? Well, I never leave a meeting without asking this question, so I'm going to ask it here, and you're included, Wendy. Can you share with me one thing you got out of our discussion today? Who would like to start?
I'll start. No meeting, no book. I love it.
Thank you, Mike. Who's next?
This is probably the quickest way to get to wants and needs.
Thank you. Walter.
The emphasis on not only reading the book, but asking the question about the key concepts and what key concepts did you really get from the reading to really start some additional conversations.
Thank you. Wendy?
I knew a lot of the other stuff, but what I'm taking away and some thoughts to share with the network, because this is the part that I didn't have, was using it with the CEO executive groups. So actually talking about, becoming a speaker, thought leader, using fail-safe there. So that's my takeaway.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And my takeaway is that you continue to grow a network of good, dedicated, intelligent people who I am looking forward to meeting at the first possible opportunity. So I'm planning on being at the next Power Summit, so please join us there.
Yes. Thank you very much, Jerry. We really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your wisdom with us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.